And all of a sudden, here we are. Here we're trying to get the interviews and stuff done right now. So I appreciate you.
Well, we can zig and zag. I'm sorry, I was a little housekeeping.
That's all right. I'm going to introduce everybody on the board here, and mostly for your benefit, because well, for you were Rick Hamill, Township Supervisor.
Nice to meet you.
Judy Cooper, Township Treasurer.
Nice to meet you.
Tammy Flowers, Township Clerk.
Hi.
Rob Young, one of the firefighters from the Fire Department Station Committee.
And Haley.
Oh, sorry, Haley. I forgot you were back. Haley Kenworthy, one of the other members of the Fire Department Station Committee. There's two other members, which one should be here probably within the next 15 minutes. He's just going to sit in. He's not going to take any notes or ask any questions. But it's Captain O'Neill. He'll pop in here in a few minutes. He's an older guy, bald. Don't think anything of it.
Show off.
And then
Older
Firefighter Smith was also on the committee. Any questions for us off
How
the
about if you
bat?
guys introduce yourself?
Yeah, how about we do that?
Sure.
I'm David Gasson with Partners in Architecture, principal of the firm, and give a little bit more about what I'll do as far as the project goes as we move into the questions and descriptions.
Diamo Grabi with Axiom Construction.
Fred Meinberg with Partners in Architecture.
And I'm George Kakan with the SIDOC Group, and I'll be responsible for managing the engineering group for the project.
And I apologize for that.
That's all right.
Partners was you guys were the ones that did the assessment on the stations, so I guess I assumed that everybody knew you guys. So.
Well, I think I've met everyone but Haley and Rob, and although Rob looks a little familiar, I just don't remember officially meeting you, but Judy and Tammy and obviously Rick we've met before, so, and Fred too, I think. As far as questions go, I don't know who asked, if we had questions, but
Just about the committee, I got
Oh.
6 questions. The interview process is going to be set up in 2 different parts. First part's 30 minutes of questions. There's 6 questions in it.
5 questions.
Or I'm sorry, 5 questions in it. We have to rephrase. And then the second part is if you have any presentation, which is completely optional, you have 30 minutes to do your presentation. Okay?
sounds good.
Any questions, any concerns, any thoughts? All right.
We're ready.
Ding. Question number 1. Take a few minutes to tell us about each entity in the design build team. Builder, portray the architects, and then architects will have the opportunity to portray the builder.
Oh, we tell each other about each other.
Tell us about your experience,
With each other.
history, past, what you know,
Okay.
why you've chosen to team up together. Or you can do the architect talking about the builder
Yeah,
first. Either way.
I'll start it off. If
Yeah,
don't
thank
mind.
you.
Well, Diab and I and his company, as well as ours, go back many years, and we've probably done 4 or 5 projects. None rather easy. They've been mostly renovations of situations that have been less than great. And the thing I guess I might take away from the projects, and I use the latter as my experience, is that we knew that we were going to run problems just because there's unforeseen conditions and timing and all those things that go along with complicated construction. And the one thing I can always count on with Diab and the people that he have working with him is that he's a get it done kind of guy. He's a problem solver, and that was beneficial not for me, but really for the owner. And I'm looking to make life easier for the owner and end up with a really good result. And Diab is somebody I could always count on. We always ran into something, and I could count on him solving the problems, even if it took a couple times and a little extra effort and going the extra 9 yards.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate that. I'd tell anybody that.
The reason why I teamed up with Partners is they're detailed. They're
Let me start off. I should have said this earlier. I'm not taking any scoring on this whole process because I know Axiom. I know the owner of Axiom. I don't want any conflict of interest, so I'm not going to have any input on anything with this. I'm just going to be the commentator asking questions. So you
like I said, the reason why I chose to team up with Partners is they are a team player. that are willing to work with the contractor instead of finger pointing. And when I do have issues, they're available. You know, whether it's 7 o'clock in the evening on a Monday or on a Saturday, they're available. So that and their designs, I enjoy their designs and putting them together.
Thanks, Dale, that was very nice.
Do I get an opportunity as the third entity?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. The reason SIDOC Group has chosen to team up with Bldg, which is Axiom, and the architect partners in architecture is SIDOC Group, if you're not familiar with us, we have a full service group of staff. We have about 170 staff. We're mostly engineers and we have architects and a lot of different specialty type engineering groups within our ranks. But I know from a professional level, David and I used to compete on many projects very early on in my career, and that's how I've gotten to know him. We've sat on committees together, you know, that are professional committees, and I got to know him. And the more I got to know David is what I learned was that he's a really honest guy, okay? And he always wants to do the right thing, and that was something, and I think, and you know I'm not speaking out of turn here because I've shared this with you, is I've always seen that as a great trait in an individual and a fellow competitor and professional, and there was an opportunity for us to work together. So currently we're working on 3 projects, public service type projects in Grosse Pointe. We're working on a new major police station in Royal Oak, and we're just kicking off another public safety program for 3 different projects down in Canton together as team members. And as we work together and have been working together, I've just been very impressed not only with David, but with Fred and all the people that work for him. As a matter of fact, he's got a couple of people that used to work for me. And there's no hard feelings or anything like that, but it just gives me an opportunity to work with them again. Axiom, on the other hand, the first project I've worked professionally, not with the firm, because the firm's done many projects with Axiom, but me professionally working with Dept was on the new fire station in Birmingham. And I just recently moved to Birmingham, so I'm really proud to talk to my new neighbors and people that I meet saying, hey, I know the guy who's building it, we designed it, it's going to be a great project. And all through the whole process, and it hasn't been easy, and most projects aren't, but he's made it really easy for everyone, from the owner, the architect, as well as his own staff. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks for that, George. I'd like to add one more dimension to that too. In terms of working together, we work with the owner groups, and that's primarily our expert in any building type. And we select owners just like we select a builder, just like we select a consultant. We are a singularly focused planning architectural firm that look for experts to help us do our best for our owners. So when we pick SIDOC, we pick them because they are, like we are, work on public facilities and fire stations. Same thing with Dept. His primary work is in the public realm. Our work is 95 to 100% public facilities, whether it's a municipal, village, city, township, or county, or school. It's in that realm of public architecture, which is very important because the people you work with and interact with, as compared to, say, public work, not meaning public like government, but private developer type things, is very different. So you have to have a different mentality. And the other point I kind of briefly covered was we select our owners too. There are owners that we would choose not to work with. We want to work with people that have the same mindset of quality and enduring in terms of their facility. So just like you're picking someone, we really picked you too, to at least to pursue the work.
All right.
Nice.
Change orders are unavoidable. What would you recommend to limit the requirement for change orders?
When you say limit, what do you mean? Not to have them at all, or to have a dollar value cap to them?
Every when we created the fire station committee, we started going out and visiting different stations that were newer construction. The one thing that we always heard a complaint of is change orders. Change orders are going to kill you. We started out at this budget. By the time we were done, because of all the change orders, this is how much it cost us. I don't think we'll run into that as much with the design build team, because you don't have the designer and the builder pointing at each other saying, hey, it's his fault, it's his fault. Because we're hiring you guys as a team, you're going to hammer that out ahead of time so that it's not the builder coming to the architect saying, hey, you designed this wrong, I can't build it like this, or the builder coming to the architect coming to the builder saying, hey, why aren't you doing it this way?
Well, you've taken the best first step to help minimize that in your process. The second part of your process, besides just being design build, is the guaranteed maximum price. And our interpretation of what you've asked for is that when we tell you what it costs, that is what it's going to cost. If it comes in at more than that, we're going to worry about that. We're not going to tell you, you know what, this thing costs more than what we first expected. That will be on us to deal with. And we've taken account for that in our process to put together our costs. So we can dig into that deeper if you want to, but here's an opportunity to bring it up, is when we put our price together, we put a contingency in there that's going to cover those unforeseen conditions. That's not counting for like an Indian burial ground or some kind of goofy thing that no one could have expected, but there are certain things that's going to happen, and we're not going to want to trouble you with it. We're just going to deal with it because we gave you a guaranteed maximum price. If you say something like, you know what, I love that, but let's add a second floor, that's not a change order, that's a change in scope. We talk about that, but those little things that you're probably encountering from conversations with other people, or I'll call it the nickel and dime effect of things, and that happens a lot. But not in the delivery method that you're asking for. When you're saying design build, guarantee maximum price, you want to know what it's going to cost at the end of the day, not at the beginning. And that's what we're providing to you. So unless you change something significantly, a little changes we're going to zig and zag. Unless you change something significantly, the change order process is not something you're going to have to deal with.
So you said something a couple times, guaranteed maximum price.
Yeah.
So as we start off, if we're not at the guaranteed maximum price that we originally agreed to come in lower, what happens?
Well, that's a good question. So we look at pricing as a continuous mindset in terms of how do we best provide you with what you want. So we're hoping to save cost all along the way. So we call that value planning as a way of, or value examination. You may have seen that in our proposal. So in your steps of doing this project, we're giving you a preliminary design that says, here's what you need to meet all your needs based on the assessment. And here's the cost that goes with it. That cost is the guaranteed maximum price. We will have worked with you along the way with firefighters, with administration, with the board, and have determined this price based on what you say you need, and we're going to go through that very carefully to make sure we've covered it all. And that will be the guaranteed maximum price. And just to break it down, I don't want to stop what we're doing question-wise, but I will take a moment after we're done and illustrate that real simply, so it's something you can kind of walk through the steps, because I think it's very important to understand how we engage, do the preliminary design, establish the guaranteed maximum price, and deliver it like that.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, or did
Yes.
I sidestep it? Okay.
Yes.
So, just to clarify, because I'm not 100% sure. Project, let's just say that it comes in that it's gonna cost $2 million to do what we want, and that, just using a number. But it actually only cost 1.8. What happens with that additional $200,000 at the end of the project?
I'm glad you circled back on that, Rob. So that delta, that difference of the guarantee, we're saying we want to share with you. And in our proposal, we say 70% to the township, 30% to us. And that means a lot of different things to different people that would sit on this side of the table, which, I could give you a really big number to start with, so I'm hoping for a little number or number to share later on. That's not what we do. We we strive, and that's our incentive, to say where along the way can we save you money. So we're not gonna stop when we give you the GMP. We're gonna keep trying to find ways to save money along the way. And as another part to that, the contingency that I mentioned earlier about change orders, 100% of the contingency goes back to the owner. Not a portion of it, 100%, because we say that's money that we're gonna deal with if a surprise comes up. It's not accounted for, it's a surprise thing. So 100% of that would go back to the township in that case. And it's really important, I think, to understand that the incentive, it's not like we're trying to make money on this, but we're trying to show you that we're gonna keep working for you in terms of how do we do this for the best economy, all the way to the very end. It's not, okay, we've got the GMP out of the way, it doesn't matter what it costs now, because we've already established we could go up to that much. We want to be that less something. So it's an incentive for both of us.
Thank you.
You too.
Good. Within the past 10 years, have legal actions been taken against any of the design build team by any customer?
I would say no, but I don't know about the other ends. For sure, none against us. I would just say quite the contrary. We have gotten really great kind of reviews in our effort, our service, and it's really one of the hallmarks of our firm is that we kind of go the extra yard.
I would have to say no. I also got great reviews.
No.
And that was just trying to simply ask a customer service point question, so.
Just to tag onto that, there are things that, get contentious, right? And our approach to those things where that seems like, oh, that's not right, that doesn't feel good. Well, we work it out to the satisfaction of our customer, whatever that may be. And we've never had a wrestling match either. I'm not trying to say that we've worked out problems. We've never been there, but we've gotten to the end without that because we've always been service oriented. And generally what we say about the three best things we do is service, service, service. So we look to be design experts and technically precise, but if we're not serving our customer, we're not doing our job.
Okay. Now you know, because you did the original RFP, RFQ, we're based on the department's wants. Just an all-inclusive Taj Mahal building. Our fire department established a committee after the RFPs were designed to determine what our actual needs are. For example, we asked for 4 bays in both stations, 2 deep. Is that what we actually intend on getting? Not in the long term, not in the long run, but if it was a perfect world and they'd write whatever check I wanted, sure. With that being said, if awarded and based on the needs assessment, how long would it take to determine a ballpark price on our actual needs, not our wants?
In terms of schedule, we're flexible to be able to do whatever it is you need. I'm thinking there's a question behind the question. We deal with that kind of thing all the time. We work in alternative methods simultaneously. Our picture of how we would engage after the 11th, if we were so chosen, is that we would want to have meetings on the 13th and then 3 Fridays up until May 1st when you're going to call for your vote. And through that time frame, we want to further define the project. We thought those working sessions would help us kind of get up to date with what you're thinking or what's been discussed that maybe we don't know about or that wasn't shared in the RFP process. And typically there are things that you want to be able to go through, but we have committed that we're going to slate a set meeting every Friday from the 13th through up to the 1st, so anything that needs to be worked out can. And in that time frame, we can make the adjustment to do whatever. We were fully prepared to do that in terms of program verification, confirmation, define the project, and come up with whatever that outcome is in terms of cost.
Good.
Right, it's because we're on a short timeline, and we're just trying to make sure it's feasible to get it done.
And we have thought through that with a great deal, and we understand we do this a lot where we're working within the millage time frames.
Right.
And sometimes it's a late decision and you have to do what you have to do. And We're working with a couple other communities where exactly the same thing has been done, where we've, without the plan, we have set the dollar value, we have gone to vote, we have been successful, and then they said, okay, now build what we need with this much money. And it wasn't a guess, we knew that, but it took us a pretty good commitment to say, okay, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a little bit of tunnel vision into it, and it works out. It takes the same kind of commitment from you, though, because we can't do it without you.
You're not saying you're gonna commit to the guaranteed maximum price at that point in time.
No, we are going to establish a number that we're all going to be comfortable that you're going to build the buildings within that number that you can then call for your election. We'll have a couple weeks of time to kind of finesse it, and then you'll be able to do your language to go to your voters. And then we're going to do a guaranteed maximum price less than that number. We're going to make sure that we put a number out for your voters to contemplate, that we're going to be less than that when we do the guaranteed maximum price.
How long does that take
Which part?
to get
Come up with a
to,
guaranteed now.
yeah, to get to that GMP number?
Ideally, we're in that 8-week time frame. We can zig and zag however we need to. The more time you have, the less risk everybody takes.
Correct.
So if we pushed it out 12 weeks, we're all better off. But sometimes you don't have that luxury. And I'll just use another project as an example. We're doing the public safety project that George mentioned, fire and police for Grosse Pointe. And we were not as far along as maybe we have presented in our proposal to you in terms of plans and imaging. And we determined what the cost would be, variable costs. And that was, a meeting of the minds and a little bit of a comfort, and they went to ballot. It was successful. And then, months after the ballot was approved, we established the GMP after that. That enabled them to get a little of their stuff done too. But within the 8 weeks, if we said by the middle of June, come beginning in July, we're going to have a GMP, we could do that without any hesitation.
Yeah, I think the other advantage that you have here with the design build team is we have a constructor and we also have the engineer, and with the architect, you have 3 entities that are constantly checking against each other and reviewing things and making sure that everything's covered. So, our job is to make sure that we provide you with good information so you can make informed decisions.
The other thing about setting it, the time frame which you want to do the GMP, we could do that before we leave the room if you want to. But that wouldn't be fair to you, right? We understand your needs, and I think our proposal response is pretty good. Really, I do. But the whole process of deciding good, better, best and categorizing what your building's going to be, we know it's a 30-year building, but we also know all municipalities take a 30-year building out to 50 years. So some of those areas need to be towards the best side. A lot of them could just stay in the good and better. But we need to go through that together before we get the right formula, because you want to end up being as efficient as you can with the way you spend your money. But we can do a GMP right away, but it's just not fair to you, because then you're going to your voters for a big number. If we can get to that 90%, hey, we're good. If we take a week or 2 or 8 weeks, we can improve everybody's understanding what it is you're going to get and your comfort of what you're going to get. Hopefully I'm not, when I talk sometimes, I hear what I'm saying, I just don't say it.
Trust me, I know how that works. I specialize in
We hear
that.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
So for example, Station 1 was in the RFP at what square footage?
21,000.
Just like
21,750.
And that's,
And
we came in
then-
at 21,750.
And then
Station 2
now
is-
it's down to what? In our
We think we
minds?
can get away with
15, give or take.
15,000.
15. So that's kind of significant in my mind. How does that affect can you work with that level of change from what's in here to what's up?
Without a question.
Absolutely.
And it would be simple. It won't be like this, oh my gosh, I got to do that. It would be a simple little transition for us to do that. Same thing with Station 2. You may have noticed in our pricing, the economy of scale from building size 1 to building size 2, slightly higher in square footage cost, or cost per square footage. So you shrink them a little bit, You could do that a number of ways. You could eliminate program spaces, which could be, Bay 4, or it could be a dorm, or it could be a number of other things. Because there are things that I'd say are in that category you put. We may be able to not have those, or live without them in Station 2, but need them in Station 1. So there are a number of things you can do to reduce the square footage, but there are also, when you look at the building plans, how efficient is the plan? How much of it is dedicated towards this walking around space? And when you look at ours, I hope you see that not just for efficiency of use of square footage, but really it's for response time. How do you get from the 3 primary places you're going to be in the station to where you need to be to roll? And those travel distances and those square footages are really tight. They're good. They're not tight like they're uncomfortable. They're tight like, wow, how'd they do that? So we're making good use of the square footage in our plans, and I think we'll show you some of that today. So we're squeezing the square footage down. We could take things out and even reduce it more, like maybe you guys are already thinking about.
I just want to say this is the quietest I've ever seen Fred.
We haven't gotten crime yet.
All right, question 5. The township is currently one month behind in our anticipated schedule. With that in mind, do you believe an August millage vote to be achievable target?
I
Absolutely.
think you already answered that, yeah.
Without a doubt. But the things that are going to be with an asterisk on them is, can you work with us as quickly as we know we need to work to get you there? We can make a lot of suggestions, and those are probably going to be the way you make your decisions, right? And for the most part, those are going to be rock solid. But there's going to be points where you say we need to really think and roll up our sleeves and wrestle with this particular thing, especially like square footages. Once you set your number, you go to ballot, and you say, we need that 4th bay. Well, it's too late. Right? My opinion, and this is how I've dealt with other communities, is don't be real precise with your ballot language, and be more generous with your ask, because you won't get to go again for a number of years. And the need is there. You can demonstrate the need, and we have tools that we use to help you present that to your community. In my mind, it won't be a question. Pardon?
A propane tank.
So, yeah, without a doubt, we can make that happen for you. And we were going to show you some examples of things that are going to help you feel comfortable that you're going to have what you need to go to your community. We're going to be your resource in that regard too, and that's part of our proposal. We're not just doing your design. We're not going to be happy if we go through step 1 and you can't do step 2. That doesn't serve anybody. So.
I'm not sure if he's pulling something out because he wants to ask a question or.
No, I wanted just to have it in front of me,
Okay.
because I'm sure at some point in time I will have a question based on it. But I just wanted to
Any
get it in front of me.
questions?
No, I'm good.
All right, that ends the question portion of it. You'll have the opportunity for 30 minutes to make a presentation or however you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We answered, I think, or we were able to give you information that we were hoping to be able to present to you. So a lot of what we're going to do is not going to be the boilerplate presentation stuff. But there are a couple of things I would like to go through. I think that just helps everybody get on the same page. So I want to go through our understanding what the project is, and we've talked about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about our approach, and we may do less of that because we covered some of that conversation. And then also our solution, and that, because I see Rob pulled out the cost sheet, I want to cover that too, because I think there's a great deal there that could be made more clear to you. Not just ours, but I think between all the respondents you got, maybe they look different. Not just the number, but how they were presented. So I'd like to at least present to you ours so you understand exactly how we arrived at that and what that means. So I'm going to go up there if you don't mind.
Sure.
Have to use this. And maybe you'll be able to see it. I had a much fatter marker, but we left it at the office, so hopefully you can see this. So, like I said earlier, we see this as the description. We're replacing 2 fire stations based on your need on sites that are yet to be determined, unless you start zeroing in on something, which would be one of those things we'd love to know, because that'll be important. But the 2 things we see is, we'll call it step 1, is the whole thing is definition of the project. What is it we're doing? That's kind of what we're gonna talk about. How does it change, if it does? And how do you get to the election? So that's step one. Step two, there's gonna be enough room, is implementation. I'm gonna abbreviate along the way, all the way up to occupancy. How do you get into the building? So this is made up of a couple things. Step one, step two, we're gonna confirm your program. What that means is we have a document we're already basing a design on. So we have a square footage and we have use within spaces. We want to go through that in a much deeper level with the user group, firefighters, those that are going to be occupying the building. We have a great sense of how big your need is, but what happens in each one of those spaces is going to really determine in more detail the cost of it. So we want to go through that with the user groups. And then we're going to design the building based on that. And not just the building, but we're going to look at the site as well. Some of what you see in your proposals is someone's best guess at an interpretation without having interaction with you. We have a lot of experience in these building types, so we have a really good sense of what a space that's defined by a title, where it should go and what it's going to happen in there. But we want to work with you in a great deal more detail to go through that. And then we're going to document it. So that's going to be a site plan, floor plans, multiple floor plans, elevations, giving you character of the building, define what the materials are, what the systems are, how's it heated, how's it cooled, how's it ventilated, all those things are going to be documented. And you're going to need that plus some iterations, maybe some alternate A, B, C, D, just for cost reasons even. But all that rolled together is going to be the preliminary design package, and that's what you've asked for in your RFP. Now I'm really getting messy. So that is the deliverable for step one. And that's kind of how you've asked for it. Now, how do we get there is going to be a little bit more of our working effort together. So the first thing we're going to do is May 1. We're going to do the millage, and then May 15th, the language for the millage. That's the 3 meetings we're going to have to talk about what's in your mind, what's happened differently, and what do you need to better be comfortable with going to your public to say we're going to vote. So we're going to help you with that in the next 3 weeks. Then we're going to meet with, then we're going to want to know about your site. Is there anything you can offer about that right now?
It's about that far above the ground.
So to us, that's a critical element for cost. So and also your bond language. You don't have to say I'm going to buy property. You don't have to say that specifically, and you don't have to say I'm going to buy that property. You just have to say the township is going to seek out land in order to provide 2 new facilities. You know all that stuff. But the more we know about potential sites, the better we could help define the costs associated with those sites. But if you don't have any, we could do some worst case scenario stuff. But that would be what we call the site assessment. We're going to do that together. After that, as I mentioned,
You didn't abbreviate that one.
Passes.
we put a period. And then the
Yes,
user
that's
group
what's
part.
been so far.
That's typically going to be, I'll call it 6 to 10 meetings where we're going to put an agenda together and say, here's what we're going to talk about, so you can decide who needs to be at that meeting. And it's going to be in detail about the space, the relationships with the space, the size of the space, what equipment goes in there, not just today, but what do you foresee for 20 years? What kind of things is going to happen in the firefighting industry that you need, or emergency response industry that you need help with? Fred has gone to the Fierro for the last 3 years, so he's been elbow to elbow with industry leaders, firefighters. He brings that back on an annual basis to us and through his communications. But the user group meetings is a time where we lean on you as the expert user group to make sure we're designing a facility that you're going to be able to best live in and fight fire and serve the community from. So those user group meetings are going to be another step in this process. The next thing that we like to do is engage the community, town hall meetings. This is a big endeavor for a community, and it could go without a town hall meeting, and this is really a decision you guys make. But we like to offer the option that in working together, we're developing plans and ideas and visions that we'll share with the community that they could critique, offer input or not. That sometimes happens as a segment of a board meeting, but a lot of times it happens as just a call to the public. Hey, we're gonna have a work session at the fire station. Any and all are welcome to come and see what we're thinking and offer input. That would be one of the things we do. And we think there's a lot of good input that comes out of that. Next is the council interaction. The council is vital into the process to set direction and get input on. And that would be a couple times during this process. If I use that 8-week time frame to get to the GMP, that probably happened 3 times, maybe 4, depending on your willingness to do special meetings. So that would happen just as checkpoints for progress and also milestones, where we were entering a point at which we wanted to make a decision. That's what I'm going to call a milestone. We'd ask for a meeting with the council. After that, we're ready to help you prepare for the campaign. So do you have some of those documents, Fred? Can you hand out the Owasso and Green Oak? So what we do, again, we just remain a resource for you. This is an area where some townships, cities, villages need more help than in the design process because they haven't done one of these in 20 years. You know, a capital campaign is different, a millage is different, but they all need a way to communicate to the community. So these are just some things. In addition to the town hall meeting, we've done this kind of awareness. We've done website information that have live information, or I'll call it video. It's not live, it's video. Where we'll take one of these building plans and we'll do a walkthrough or a fly-through or a drive around, just so everybody understands what it is the community is trying to achieve. These just happen to be a couple of examples that community said, you know, if we had something to put up in our lobby so when people are coming to pay their water bill or get information, they could see this, even if they don't want to attend the town hall meeting. So this is just another thing that we do. It seems to be a very successful part of the overall campaign. So those are the things that would happen in step 1. In our step 1, if you looked at our cost, we understand that step 1 is critical, but it doesn't mean anything unless part 2 or step 2 is successful. That means your vote, right? If your vote doesn't pass, this effort, this exercise, this expense almost seems a little bit wasteful, even though that you know that you would go again. But we are considerate of that, conscientious of that, and you know our fee there was in 2 parts. Design was $9,000, documentation was 18 or 19, total of 28. So your total risk from a cost standpoint to get to your election, to have a plan, to have a fully informed community, to have your user groups totally involved and illustrating their needs is $28,000. On top of that, you know, is just as a way to say, hey, we're your partner. We understand the situation of, you know, making decisions this big. We say that if we get to that point and you move past that to step 2, we'll credit back half of that, just to lighten the load a little bit. So we credit half of that fee back to you at, you know, success of step 2. And then step 2 is obviously the implementation. So now you have the successful campaign, the millage is underway, you have the bonds money, you're ready to start. So quickly thereafter, you're hoping to see something going in the ground. That would be following final engineering, final architectural, finished sample selections, equipment systems selections, all those things that are going to make your building ready to move into. Those are the next things that we're doing in the final implementation. And then construction. That's when Diab's team would be more active in the process. We're all active throughout the whole thing, but that's when he would be more active than, say, in the design. And that would go right up through construction, and then construction closeout, and then occupancy, which we help you get familiar with the building and go through some owner training and, you know, give you attic stock and all that sort of stuff to get ready to live in the building for the next 30+ years. And then the way you've asked for that in the RP, obviously we know because we were instrumental in putting that together. is a percentage. So I'm gonna hand out something, or at least I'll review it, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
And it's now to the point on the cost. So the cost sheet that Rob was looking at, I added a little more information to it, and I appreciate that you were so open that you posted everything to your website. So I was able to look at that, and I felt a little like sneaky at first, but I was saying everybody else is looking, I might as well too.
Trust me, I
So-
got a breakdown from one of the other companies that didn't get invited to the interviews, so.
Oh, okay. And that happens, and it's, I know you guys are facing tough decisions. Everybody that you're talking to and you got proposals from is a good firm. They could all do this job for you, and there's a couple ways for you to decide who, right? For us, it's a lot of different things, but it's here's a project that's gonna take 30 months, and you're kind of done. For us, it's a lifetime time thing. Our relationship doesn't end when the project is finished, and that's kind of the way we kind of look at it. So in our overall proposal, and the way I think that you asked for, and I think it was pretty clear, our cost $28,000 for step one, and step two was 22.95%. And what that really means is that's not our fee, that's not anybody's fee. That's the amount of dollars or percentage of dollars that's not going to construction. That should be important. That should be the most important thing to you. Or maybe on balance with how is it delivered? What kind of service? Are you getting attention, availability, accountability, all those things part of the process. So some of the other ones weren't as clear as I thought they should be, but as a comparison, some of the others were significantly higher. But the point is that we're going to deliver this building at a very high efficiency in terms of dollars towards construction, just like we are square footage towards functionality as compared to circulation. It's a parallel, but it's the reach.
You're gonna share that with us?
Should I?
You should.
Okay. My own notes, but I happen to be multiple copies.
I kind of figured.
And I just want to put a footnote to this. The only reason I did that, or I'm sharing it with you, is I want to make sure you're clear. If we're not, in the comparable sense to someone else, that's fine, and I'm showing it. But there is a great deal of difference, especially when I look at our approach to partnership and our philosophy working with owners. We know there's a certain amount of, I don't know, I haven't done this before. Help me get to the point where I'm comfortable. That's the partnership approach that we take. And it's illustrated here in our costs. We're willing to be a little bit at risk because we know that if step two doesn't happen, the real compensation for our effort is never going to be realized. So we have to do our very best to get you satisfied with going to your voters and help them say yes, so step two happens. So that's us saying we're committed to our effort, we know how to do this, and we're willing to go a little bit at risk in order to achieve success for everybody. Well, I don't think there's any real clarification or differences between what I gave you in my proposal as compared to what maybe is just lettered out there in red. Anything specifically you wanted me to elaborate on it? Because I think there are some areas I could.
On this document?
Yes, or the one that was in my proposal.
Primarily in the firm 2 and firm 3 doesn't identify. I will tell you that one of the other firms said that there's no cost up front if it's an unsuccessful millage.
Okay, and that's not unheard of. And
Yours is 28,000.
28,000. And we're open to that conversation with you if that becomes a point at which you have to make a decision. We want to work with you, and we want to be fairly compensated. We understand our compensation in this scenario that we presented is more in phase 2. If it's required that we put all of our compensation in phase 2, that's certainly something we would not say no to. But
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
If it didn't pass on the first vote and we had to go again, would we incur those charges all over again?
That's a great question. I think there's two ways to look at that. So if you want to go back for a second election, we're with you. We're your partner. we're gonna work on this until you get to the point you have fire stations.
Already in this cost or at additional cost?
Well, if we're talking about no cost, it's still gonna be no cost. Yeah, so at this cost, it would just roll right into the next effort, no additional money.
Yeah, David, that's typically the way we would have done it, is if the first one wasn't successful, we'd make whatever adjustments and then retool, and then go ahead and hit the second one and make sure it's successful.
And if I understand your question right, Haley, that would be at no cost. That's what I'm telling you, is that if I understand your question right. So as an example, I could see a situation where I would throw out in our first weekly meeting, hey, how about if we do a ballot A and a ballot B? You know, station 1 is on A, or ballot B is both of them combined. So in that scenario, you'd have one effort successful possibly, and you'd have to do another one in the future. Or you do a station 1 ballot and station 2 ballot, and they both could pass, and you do them at the same time. There's multiple ways that I can see that we'd have to go again. And it's not uncommon for us to do that. Things don't always pass the first time. And our second go-around is at no cost, in addition to what we already charged.
And David, you touched on an interesting point, and a very important point, is because of all the experience that we've had collectively as a team, I mean, we can bring a lot of different strategies on how to actually put the whole proposal together so that it is most favorable to what you're trying to accomplish as well as to the community.
Yeah, just to add on to that, we do a lot of bond work. I mean, a lot. It's not 50%, but I'd say 25% of the work, which is significant, involves a bond, and involves us helping the bond be successful in various sizes, from within a $5 million bond and a $70 million bond. So it's anywhere in between there.
Can I go after $70 million bond?
No.
Yeah,
Give it
over
a try. If
250
you're successful, then wow.
Same guy that wants to put the museum at the station.
Only if you'll stand at my counter.
Going back to the point of, you know, how much does it cost us to do what we do, that it's not real relative to this number. It costs us a lot more than that. We know this is an investment, just like it's an investment from your side. You're putting forth a lot of time and energy, and you won't know what you get out of it for months. So our business was started as the idea that we want to partner with the people we work for, and like I said, we're selective. So that's our partnership approach.
No, just on a side note, are you guys, these are just proposed, the Green Oak and Owasso?
That's it.
Right, but I'm just saying, have any of these come to attrition where they're gonna actually begin the build process?
Kind of.
Okay,
Owasso was just sent last week back to them to start their financing alternatives, whatever it is they do. Green Oak was stepped, so we have now begun their police station, which is probably 15% out of the ground, and the fire is gonna follow that.
okay,
But it hasn't gotten anywhere beyond that.
okay.
Another one we didn't give you an illustration of is the Grosse Point, which is bonds are passed, the millage was passed, the bonds have been sold, and we're in design. And we're looking to construct the thing start fall.
Okay.
We're just in our user group state right now, we're probably in our 8th or 9th user group meeting.
Okay.
I think what you need to look at is, correct me if I'm wrong, these are graphic illustrations to use in the marketing program to be able to promote the
Right.
thing so people can, oh, that's what it is, and
See it.
that's
precisely what it is.
absolutely critical, because if the public doesn't get that image in the best level possible, then they don't have a clear mind when they're moving forward, so, I was really glad to see this.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we brought it, just so you know that there's other things you're gonna need, and we're here to provide them and help you with them.
Well, it made me feel better, because if, going forward, I know that I don't have to try and do that, because this would be something I would do, to make sure that, it would be successful, is to help with that part, but, this takes it right off of my plate completely if I had to go that route, so.
And there's gonna be something that comes up that wasn't in the proposal that might just be available new, as a new thing. And that all you do is call, hey, you know what, I heard about this thing, can you check it out? And when we begin our relationship, it's in all regards. So if there's help you need, assistance you need, or something you want research investigated, that's what we're here for. So, any other questions on the costing of this?
I just have to ask it, why is there the price difference between the two stations, the square foot price?
It's really the economy of scale. The bigger something gets, the more of them you're building. Like the masonry, as an example, the bigger station's gonna have more masonry. So when the mason looks at putting a price together for that, it's gonna be a lot easier for him to want to give you his best price for more masonry versus a lesser amount of masonry.
So would you ultimately be bidding these construction costs out for like two separate, or would they be one total but two different projects?
We would want to bid them as one. We would want it to look like you have the best option to do one versus the other, but you, let's say again, maybe the mason, you're gonna have a crew over here and a crew over there. You won't necessarily be able to go from one to the other. In some trades you will, and that would be ideal. Where we'd stage it where foundations are in, masonry's in, and you're at the next station doing the same thing. But there is the potential, great potential that you're not gonna be able to man both, or you will be able to man both at the same time, therefore you can get some bid day savings. But if you don't, you're gonna have to have the ability and the number to be able to do it one after the other. Even though we won't, I don't envision us doing station one, then a month later starting station two when you're into station one. They just may be staggered in construction phases is ideal, and that's what we've proposed, is we do them at the same time. If you said we can't do it that way, it's just too much disruption, we would obviously alter that. That's the approach that we think is going to be best for you.
Okay.
I got one answer that was good on the site. It's about right here. Any other detail, or is that something you're not able to reveal yet, but once you choose someone, you will? I don't need to know where it is. I just want to know where you are in the process. Come
looking.
They're working at it.
Okay.
The beginning stages.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now, once the project begins, how do you staff, you know, a construction manager on site at each project, or is it one for the entire project, and then your construction meetings, so on and so forth? How is that?
So when the construction starts, when that process starts, we'll have a site superintendent at each job, and I'll have a project manager that'll oversee both jobs.
And then.
And what we do is we do, sorry.
No, you're fine.
What we do is we do bi-weekly meetings with the owners, and I do weekly meetings with the trades.
Okay.
We have a couple more things we're going to cover. I don't know if you're long into your meeting now, or should we try to cover?
You got 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. Hustle, Fred. I'm going to turn it over. I had a couple more things, but I'll come back to myself.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll bring that up in front here, Fred. We want to talk about the solution. Like I said when I started, I'm proud of what we do, but I'm particularly excited about the solution that we came up with considering your program in terms of efficiency and functionality. And most important, the safety aspects of how you design a fire station.
Right, so we took the program and we looked at the fundamentals of what are we trying to accomplish when laying out a fire station. We want to improve response times to the base, so you can serve your community better. We want to improve the health and the safety of the firefighters who are using the station, improve their quality of life, and give you flexibility and the resources you're going to need moving through the next 30 to 50 years. So generally speaking, for the layout of Station 1, we've accomplished the 4 double deep bays for a drive-through or a bi-directional exit. And then we've located some public spaces off the front. So the Department Museum, we'd like all of your community to experience that space when they come into the building, see your history, potentially walk past your antique apparatus, and have the opportunity to use this training room for community events. Along the side, we've included the offices and conference for the fire administration. And then in the center, we've located the dorm spaces. So that is the most direct access from the whole station out to the bays. By having them deployed to the center, they're deploying to the rear of the apparatus, which is the safest spot for to load them, so nobody's crossing in front of the rigs when they're leaving. And you know, when they're responding from that area, typically it's in the middle of the night when you know, you're getting up to speed, waking up. So it's the easiest path out to the bays. On the back side of the station, we've included the day room, kitchen, dining, living area, and fitness. And then I guess the other thing, the decon. So currently, there's room for improvement in the decon process. We've included a configuration where you can enter off the exterior of the building. Decon in there's a shower and restroom. There's a 3-compartment sink, a boot wash. You can do kind of that bulk decontamination in that area and then go into the rest of the station. So you're not tracking that contaminant material into the living quarters. Overall, you can see the different colors on the plan here. The idea is to keep the contaminated carcinogens and gear and all of that stuff in the bays where it's environmentally separated. That way we're not tracking that into the living quarters. So these transition spaces here in yellow, there's just another opportunity for you to wash your hands, clean up before you go into that part of the station. Station 2 has been configured in a very similar fashion. We've removed some of that program space that's not needed based on your program. Not so much administration, but more living quarters and for the firefighters. Other than that, the decontamination, PPE storage, laundry, all of that's generally the same. And then finally, our interpretation of what might fit into the contextual architecture of Highland. We want to have something that is familiar to the area, something that ties in with the rural. So we're suggesting a scheme here of kind of a rural barn, maybe for lack of a better term, something that fits in with the contextual architecture. Okay.
Which have rave reviews, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, this is another, process of refining. We're designing this in a vacuum, so we're looking for feedback as we move into the next process.
I do have a question in regards to the conceptual design. You only submitted the one for Station 1.
Right, and so depending on the siting location, this building may work in one part of Highland, it may not work in another part, depending if you're downtown or you're out in more rural areas. So our intent would be to tailor each building to its context, but also to repeat some themes potentially. So you create if that's desired, create a DNA of design between the buildings so they all feel it's part of the same department. And currently, I would say you have two stations, Station 1 and Station 2 kind of have that, and Station 3 is a little bit different.
What I just handed out was, I wanted to do this first, but this is how we began a design process. It's for the city of Dexter and their Station 1, the replacement of it. And they had a lot of ideas. I think we went through a dozen different conceptual ideas, cite different sites as well as different plans on different sites. This just gives you an evolutionary process of how we begin, and I'll call it that user group meeting. So you can see some of these are a little bit more refined than others, but you start with a rather crude approach. And some of the backslides or back pages show you, some of these things just wind up on the office floor and never get to the client. But we wanted to walk through the process of how decisions are made, and this was particularly important when the community gets involved. Some communities are very involved and some aren't, but how do they know they need this was very helpful using this to explain that to the community. And this is the process we go through for every project. Sometimes we just don't share, not because we don't want to, but owners don't care to see it. But this is the kind of things that we're going to show up with in our work session meetings with the user groups, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and work together and hash through different plans. And overall, like I said, I think it was 12 different buildings and multiple versions of each of those 12. That was just one thing. And then, the president will give you another example of a station we finished, but in a different way. This was a design build project. And the process for this was, the city says, we only have this many dollars, and we have this much once. Come one, come all, tell me how you're gonna do it. And our approach was a little bit, I won't say out of the box, but we didn't necessarily confine ourselves to the simple first approach. We really went through it and found a solution that they were able to get more than they said they wanted at the exact same price. So this, believe it or not, was a 4,000 square foot addition and a $400,000 budget. And we redid the whole existing building in the process. So the point of bringing it up, one is the design build project, and two, we work from a price backwards approach. And there is a little bit of that in what we're talking about here. We're going to establish a price that we all feel good about, and then we're going to deliver what it is you need at that price, not a penny more at the end. And that's what happened in this scenario. It wasn't easy. I'm going to hand out one more thing. I'm going to leave George with 3 minutes to tell you something critically important. Not about, we covered, no, it is critically important. We covered cost, first cost. How do you move into a building? And he's going to tell you some things that are going to shake your world a little bit. But before he does that, I'm going to tell you, here's a project that Axiom and Partners finished 2 summers ago, I believe. And it was a challenge. It included some alternative funding that we were able to help the city get, which is grant money. But it turned out incredibly well, and it wasn't without challenge, because it was an occupied building through the course of construction, didn't lose service. There were certainly hiccups, but the outcome was pretty spectacular. And it came in at an incredibly good price as well. So there's a lot of different ways to work together. This one, we worked together once the design was done, and we worked together in partnership to get it finished, and with all the parameters that owner had in terms of occupancy. Any questions on that before George gives you some great info?
So I gotta sum up. Is
You got it.
that what's going on here?
Oh, well, you get 3 minutes to tell them how the building's gonna work from an occupancy cost standpoint.
Okay. You wanna bring that over here just real quick, and I need the fattest marker you got.
It's
Yeah.
not like a Cinderella situation with midnight and all.
Yeah,
What's an ankle?
yeah, don't feel as though you need to rush.
Right.
Okay, well then we won't rush. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna walk through this, and then I have one question that I wanna leave you with that I think you really need to think about. So, David did a great job to explain kind of all the architectural stuff that we do, and I'm an architect. I've been an architect for 30 years, but I've always worked in firms that have been a full-service firm, where we have all of the engineering disciplines, from civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural engineering. So I've had the opportunity to work with all these folks, and I learned a few things along the way. So one of the things that, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but from a life cycle cost, excluding, let's say, what am I thinking of here? Oh, salaries. So let's take the people out of it. So if we're gonna do a brand new building, we're gonna buy a site, and what does that cost over 50 years? So I'm not gonna put all the categories down, but how much do you think out of all of that in 50 years is the construction? If we were drawing a pie. It's 20%, okay? The financing piece, because if you're gonna borrow money, somebody wants you to pay for that money, right? What do you think that's worth?
Probably about 20%.
21%.
That's not who does your financing.
That's true, okay? But this is just order of magnitude, right? How much do you think in 50 years is the maintenance cost?
62.
No.
So closer to 40.
It's actually 28%, okay?
That was a tricky piece.
This is maintenance.
Maintenance meaning repairs to the structure,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Stuff that you gotta do, put new lights in, new carpet, gotta repair the roof. Then there's the utilities and operations. What do you think that's worth?
Probably 40.
It's actually about 18%, okay? How much do you think design is worth? Our fees,
2%?
2%?
8%.
It's actually a little bit less than 1%, okay? And if you're buying land for this size property or building, what do you think that's worth?
I'm hoping,
It's about, it ranges, it depends on the size, but it's 2%. The other two things that are missing here, and they add up to the last 10%, is any kind of equipment and furnishings that you would have in order to be able to operate your building over 50 years. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make with this is, when we look at this, what do we have an immediate effect over? Okay, right now, here's where you guys are. You need to make a decision on which design build team are you going to hire to help you make a 50-year decision, okay? So that's where you're at. So you have a direct effect over this. So when you look at this big pie, I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't really matter how much you pay the architect at the beginning. What matters is how much does the architect and the design build team know about life cycle costing and putting together a really good building, because I think this was built in what, 69? And what's next year? 2019? All right, so we're pushing the 50 years, okay?
Yep.
So 50 years from now, there's gonna be another guy standing here,
Yep.
hopefully saying the same thing,
Say,
right?
"Oh, the bozos that
With your air suction on.
mean I'm us."
I mean, there's some humor to that, but the reality is we're here, right? So when we look at this, you guys need to make this decision. We can affect this number, right? Financing is gonna be something, but it's gonna be in that range. But really, these are the two big numbers that are affected by what you guys decide here. In this 21%, you're gonna, if you put the utilities and the maintenance together, it's over 40%, right?
Mhm.
So this is the thing that you could really affect over 40 years. Okay, so,
Now,
go ahead.
is that percentage of the pie based on average budgets, or is that, I mean, because you can't quantitatively apply utility costs or anything like that over a time period, or maintenance or repair costs. I mean, when this building was built, it was probably $1,000, being facetious, but it was probably $12,000 or $15,000 to build this building in 1969. We're looking at having to put a well out back that alone is, how much?
Well,
Twice that.
now it's gonna be the high end because we can't get, the only spot is we can't put it in.
Right. And
So
I
you're
guess,
talking $12,000.
yeah, and if you're pushing stuff, and I'll show you what 50 years looks like, okay? Because you take that into account by taking into consideration of inflation. So if we're just looking at the pie, these are the components of what makes up that life cycle cost. Because at the end of 50 years, you're gonna add everything up and everything's gonna have a category, right? And that's what that pie looks like. I mean, you go and do the studies. I mean, I check this stuff all the time. But the next piece of this, okay, have you guys seen this before? Have you seen these?
Yeah.
You seen these tags? Okay, this one here, okay, this one's on a building. Have you seen one on a building? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys just take a look at that. This, it says 2013 Energy Star certified building, okay? You've heard of LEED, okay? This is what I would consider the alternative to LEED. There's no program, there's nothing that you need to do during the design other than design a really efficient building. And then what they look at is they don't do it on the front end where they say you need to meet all these requirements, and then they don't do anything with it. They look at things on the back end where you submit all of your utility bills, okay, and they put it into a national data bank for your building type. Now think about that. There's probably thousands and thousands of fire stations from all different eras that are in this data bank, and they have a really good idea of what it costs to run a fire station, okay? And I know you guys have your utility bills. I have your utility bills, I've looked at them, but we're gonna just take a quick look here in terms of your current building, the building you want to build, and then if you are thinking about, and these are questions we want to ask you, is what is your target for utility usage in this building? Okay, because remember that 20%, that's what we can affect. Well, these are some of the decisions that we want to put in front of you to say, you know what, we want a really efficient building. I want to show you what that looks like.
And that's part of the design process.
Yeah.
We're talking about systems.
On the engineering side. So if we look at this, okay, it's actually over here. This represents square footage. So I'm just going to go with what was in the RFP, and you're roughly 21,000 square feet, right? So this would be the new building. This is the median building. Median being in their database at 21,000 square feet, because there's some statistics that go with this. And your current building, I think, is just over 6,100 square feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if we're looking at energy usage, let's say in terms of kBTUs, okay? The new station, if we target this is a pretty efficient building, is 93 kBTUs per square foot. Okay, and I'll translate that into money. The median building right now in 2017 in the United States runs at 154 kBTUs. This is energy use per square foot. And your building on average, okay, although you're running a little more efficient than the average for 1969, is 208. So you can see there's 100% difference between these two, actually 200% difference. Okay, so what does that mean in terms of a yearly cost? So this, at 93, at this square footage, you're going to be at $16,800 a year to run that building for utilities. The median building is at $26,250. And your current building would be at this 208 BTUs is almost 13,000 square feet, $13,000. So if you take the delta between these two, if we're making decisions, 50-year decisions, and you say, you know what, we want to get the most efficient building possible, the cost savings per year is 9,000, almost 9,500. So take that times 3% for 50 years, compound that, that's over $1 million in savings. That's a lot of money.
By making that decision up front.
In that 1%.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about that. Okay, but we can't lose sight of the fact that if you're still running, you know, because this is going to go away.
But the caveat to the 13,000 or the 6,100 square foot, the bottom one, that was based over a 3-year time period, correct?
No, this is over 50 years.
Yeah, but you took the numbers of the energy usage that we've had in the buildings, correct?
The utility bills.
No, this is from Energy Star. Because I just got your utility bills down. That's what I'm saying. You're running a little better than this. I know you're right, because I saw the bills. I saw them last night.
Well, the big reason we're running a little better than that is because prior to last year.
2 years ago, I switched out all the Bay Life LEDs. True LEDs.
Okay, and it made a difference, because I saw the jump in the history that I think you put together.
That plus building use and everything else.
Yeah, so it makes a difference. But when you start compounding that number, I mean, it's $1 million for that building. If it's this size, you know, if we're comparing these. So these are the kinds of decisions that we have to collectively make together, but you have to be informed to be able to make those decisions. Okay, and that's our job. Okay, last question. And this is more philosophical than anything else, but I did want to ask this question is, how would you define a successful project? Think about this, okay? We've gone through everything. We're at ribbon cutting day. What is it that you want to read in the Free Press or the Detroit News the Oakland Press, or whatever newspaper, web page that people read, what do you want that story to read?
Community is ecstatic about the choices they made.
Wishes they just threw.
Ecstatic? What did you say?
Nothing.
I think you'd have to take into account, getting the most for the dollar. the
So
best-
value.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the best value we could.
Getting
And
more
not
money
just
for the
first
price.
cost, but long-term cost, right?
And then that it would take care of the needs of the
Yeah.
community.
Anyway, think about that question, because that's gonna help inform us as designers as to what we need to do to ensure that that story is written the way you want it. So thank you very much for having us today. Appreciate it.
I got one more thing to hand out, and I guess we'll come to a close. Hopefully you'll allow us a minute more. These are just references. We had some in the proposal, but we added a couple to it.
Mike Kelly, Deputy Chief.
You know, Mike?
He hired on under me and Wayne.
Good things to find out.
These are just some added references. In closing, I hope from our presentation, I know it's hard to convey our full intentions and what we, already put it forward in our proposal, but I want you to know that this is a project in a community that we want to work for. We have assembled a team that we feel fits the needs that you're contemplating, and that we can give you the value that you need to end up with the best bang for your buck. Totally accountable. I'm the guy that if something you need is gonna come forward, I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work for you. I'll be available, I'll be accountable for the whole team, and everyone else is gonna be just as responsible as I will be, so. Hopefully, when you're making your final decision, we're gonna be in a conversation. We would very much like to continue our working relationship with you.
I would just like to say, I took over in August of 2016. 2017, I saw the needs in the station. I had no idea where to go. I reached out to Dept. Dept put us in touch with you. It's just been an amazing experience so far. I'm not going to have any final say, and it's all up to the board on who they choose and stuff, but I just want to thank you so much for everything that you've done and the assistance that you've given us and the direction you put us in. It was incredible working with you.
Thank you very much,
So
Chief.
far.
I appreciate that.
And I'm gonna back that up myself.
Well, thank you.
so
I really do appreciate that. It's a job, but it's way more than that for not just me, everybody in our office. And we're kind of like a family. We're very tight knit. We extend that same feel and spirit to the people that we work with, meaning our engineers, our builders, and our owners. And sometimes it's not just how much you've done before or how much you know, it's how much heart you put into what you do. And that's kind of the way we operate.
Good.
I think one of the keys that I see here is that it's really not the buildings, it's the pride that shows it. I mean, this is impressive stuff, so
Thank you.
that's where your reward's at, is
That's right.
we're happy, you're happy, so.
Yep.
But if you can make my day room look like that,
Yeah. Then we're good, right?
Well, if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'd like to ask if I think of something that maybe we didn't cover or didn't cover well enough in my mind and reflection, I'd like to be able to send comments if I can.
I'm only a phone call away.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very pleasant. Thanks.
Thank you guys.
thanks.